16. There were 16 games released in 2008. Sure, most of them can be grouped together and none of them require nor deserve a lot of explanation, but that's still way too many games to play, and too many files to sift through for editing. Anyway, this is the year that I have the least memory of, because this was the tail end of my Bionicle obsession. I think I got maybe one toy and read the books once. I barely even remember what happens in this year. So, honestly, I no longer have any connection. Let's get this over with.
First off is Bionicle Mystica, both versions, one on LEGO's website while the other was on Cartoon Network's site for some reason. They're the same game, just different levels. Both use the same terrible tank controls, assets, and objectives. I have no idea why this game had to use tank controls when it's just a top-down game, unless the goal was to make it unplayable, and planned structure does nothing to mitigate that. LEGO's version apparently supported user-created levels, but that functionality's gone, but it keeps trying to connect, which means frequent error messages. Cartoon Network's version has 3 bonus levels where you can choose between new characters besides the 6 in every other stage, but it lies. It says one of them is OP as fuck when his speed stat is supposed to be lower. I'd give a pass to the soundtrack being closer to the truth by Cryoshell, but it only plays a small section of the song without lyrics. And then the last level I played, I think locked the collectible item somewhere I can't get it. This game sucks. The next set of games are collectively known as Swamp of Secrets, similar to 2007's Toamaru game collection. First is Brick Bash. I don't know what this has to do with the story. And I know what you're thinking, it's just Arkanoid, or whichever one of its million names you're familiar with. But it surprisingly isn't just a shameless ripoff. The gameplay is actually different. The goal is still to hit the blocks at the top and something falling to the bottom, but there's no ball you have to bounce back. Destroying the bricks causes debris to fall, which you have to avoid. But the debris falls in random paths and the hit detection isn't perfect. Ricochet Raid is terrible right off the bat because it's got tank controls, and it only gets worse from here. You have to shoot all the moving enemies. You move way too fast if you decide to move at all. And best of all, as the title implies, shots ricochet off the walls, which not only confuses the player to no end with all the moving objects on screen, but the shots can hurt you too. Maybe there's a strategy to it, but from what I've experienced, it's basically unplayable. Run the Gauntlet is a kind of light gun game, which sounds good. These kinds of games work well with a mouse, but this isn't the way to prove that. You play as one of the villains, so you only shoot the heroes, but you only have a certain amount of time to shoot them before it's too late, and they sometimes appear really far away. It's not like House of the Dead, where the targets are obvious. You have to know what all the characters look like. You have to be a huge Bionicle fan to... Well, they got me there. Finally comes Trail of Glory. It's like Space Invaders with a dick ship, but not many enemies, pretty easy. The only thing hard is the rate of fire. I can mash the spacebar, but whether it fires is entirely random. How you mess up control like that, I have no idea. Other than that, nothing to say. If it controlled correctly, it'd be... forgettable. This brings us to what I guess was supposed to be the big event, Battle for Power. This was a collection of 10 games, 5 heroic and 5 villainous. It was kind of like the original Splatfest. You'd play games for the side you supported, and your performance would earn points for your side. Of course, all that's gone now, so we're just left with the games. But don't worry about your side having worse games. All of them share the same soundtrack of another short instrumental Cryoshell song, Gravity Hurts this time. Ampra and Gavla share the same game. Their bases are on the ground and you have to drop bombs on them. I'd be okay with this, but it's controlled with the mouse, and the bombs drop with momentum, which means the bombs never hit their targets unless you get really lucky. And you can't hover in place either. Even if you try to stay still, you circle in place like a drunk knights. The later levels only make it worse by requiring Ikaruga polarity. Did I mention Gobbler's version has a limited amount of bombs you have to replenish at one specific place, and that it retains the multicolor aspect that each have their own stock point? The second game is Chirox and Tanma, though they aren't exactly the same. Both are horizontal cavern shooters, but the objective is different. Chirox is chasing down a target, so time is of the essence, while Tanma just needs to reach the end with a depleting fuel gauge. Chirox has the easier time because he has normal movement controls and projectiles, though he has to shoot down his target before the stage is complete. Tanma, on the other hand, has to deal with gravity, only has blades for a weapon, and really has to collect the speed power-ups to win, while Chirox only wants them to make the game faster. The next game goes to Kopaku Nuva and Toa Ignika?
Ignika, that's how you pronounce it?
Those aren't competing characters, they're both heroes. How do you expect the sides to compete if the Toa get more games to play? Okay, these games don't really upset the balance because I can't see anyone playing these. Ignoring that this game uses 9 and 0 for control when any normal key would have made just as much sense, it's all about mid-air rotation, which means more circling like a dummy. Kopaka has to duel another flyer in a tiny arena, while Ignika gets it easier, as moving targets only take 2 hits, while the main objective is stationary ones. Pohatu Nuva and Vampira have to stop the other side from picking up Matoran, because if they reach the top with a partner, they become fast, aggressive, and a lot harder to kill. Early on, it's easy to shoot them down before it's a problem, but just a couple levels in, they throw so many enemies that it becomes impossible to stop them, and then they bounce you around until you're dead. Look at the map, it's like that scene in Wreck-It Ralph with the cyborg radar. And before every stage is this part where you have to collect these orbs in a super short timer, but I don't know what this achieves. Finally, that leaves the Matoran games, the Brother of Light and the Brother of Dark. I'd call these games the most mirrored between each other because they're the same thing. Race to the bottom, collect one type of orb depending on your allegiance, and avoid other obstacles. The only difference is which character you play as. Whoever hits the bottom first gets more points, and there's supposed to be skill in slowing down before crashing to reduce damage, but you take so little damage from crashing anyway that it's smarter to just go full speed.
Man. If I'm being blunt, this year's game sucked, even compared to 2003 or 5, where they only had one game, but they at least offered something more than this. I'll give it that it's at least better than 2002, in that these games were sometimes playable, but that is one hell of a low-bar jump. What a crappy way to close out the original universe. Maybe, if we're lucky, Mata Nui got banished somewhere with good games?
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. I'm also a part of a Let's Play channel you can check out if we ever upload, or you can look at my Twitter account where I've posted some strange things. I'm probably working on the next video now, so stay tuned.